fun about riding a dirt bike. Shifting, clutch, all that stuff that is, when you start riding, is super stressful. You got none of that with this thing. It's basically a get on and go dirt bike. There's nothing hard about it. I can see why people would, especially people that have spent a lot of time honing those skills of learning how to clutch and shift and do all that stuff really well. That's it probably burns some people up that this thing is so easy to ride, but that's honestly my favorite thing about it. I'm in my 40s. I don't have the time to invest to really get super good at a lot of those skills, and this thing is, for me, it's the bike that you can jump on and go and have a great time. Not to diminish learning how to do all those things, I think it just allows you to focus yourself on other skills of riding a dirt bike, things like body position and stuff like that, a little bit more than a traditional, internal combustion bike. So that being said, I really have no complaints about the thing in the year that I've owned it. It's been nothing but fun. One of the big reasons that I bought it was maintenance. I have two small kids. I have a full-time job, a family, all that stuff. And when I get time to ride, I want to ride. I don't want to be spending time changing oil and air filters. And I mean, with a dirt bike, there's going to be maintenance. There's no doubt about that. But this minimizes at least the bigger ticket things like top ends and stuff like that, engine rebuilds. You got bearings, brakes, chain and sprockets, and that's pretty much it on this thing. There is a small amount of oil to change. It's like, I don't even know. It looks like a couple of teaspoons. It's really not a lot of oil. I think the first oil change is at 10 hours, and I did that, and it's been, it's very easy to do. Same as a normal dirt bike. You just don't have to do it at near the frequency that you would do on a, I'm used to, I've got a Beta 300 that I've been racing the last couple seasons, and, when you're in a race season, you're changing oil and filters and all that stuff a lot. And this thing, you don't have to do near as much of that. So that for me was a big motivator in going with an electric bike. I kind of looked at the price, and when I bought it, it was more expensive than it is now, unfortunately for me, but that is what it is. That's dirt bikes. And so I kind of looked at the money invested in oil, air filters, filter oil, gas. I mean, when you're buying race gas for some of these higher end bikes, I mean, you're talking $100 for, what is it, 20 liters of gas, which isn't even 5 gallons. So you're not paying for that. The oil, like I said, like a quart of oil will probably last you 3 or 4 oil changes on this thing, at least. So the maintenance end of it is much less than an internal combustion bike. So for me, that was a big motivating factor, and that's been awesome. I really haven't had to do much, as well as like accessories. There's not nearly the amount of accessories to put on these things. You don't have to worry about a skid plate. It already has one, and there's really, there's not much to protect. Maybe some protection stuff for the sides of the, I guess, motor covers, but it's not like and I put hand guards on it, and that was pretty much it. So there's not nearly the amount of accessory. Oh, I do have stack pegs on it too. I like those, but it's that end of it is cheaper than the upfront cost of buying it, which I think now they're advertising for like $10,990 or something like that is the discounted MSRP. Mine was, like $14,000 when I bought it, I think. So they've come down a lot. Ease of riding. I mean, you could put anybody on this thing that is comfortable on a full-size dirt bike and let them go. I mean, if you can ride a mountain bike, you can ride this thing. There's no, I started with a foot brake, and I have a Sur-On, and I like the handbrakes on the Sur-On. I just thought it was more fun to have a little bit better control, I feel like. So I figured I'd try it because I've never had a full-size dirt bike with a left-hand rear brake. I have the Formula master cylinder. When I ordered mine, they were not offering the Brembo left-hand rear brake, and I didn't feel like cross-referencing to figure out which one was the right one. So I have the Formula left-hand rear brake. It's kind of squishy. I take a piece of copper wire and just tie the brake lever to the handlebar the night before I'm going to go ride, and that stiffens it up. Eventually, it'll get spongy if I let the bike sit for a week or two, but um, it's been working fine for me so far. So it's the left hand rear is not nearly as stiff as the right hand front, the Brembo master cylinder. But again, I could buy another master cylinder, and I probably just need to bleed it, but I just haven't gotten around to do it. For me, it's not that big of a deal. I'm used to it at this point. For some people, that would be a pain, I'm sure, but it is what it is for me, and I don't really care that much. Um, I have raced this thing in I think 4 or 5 Hare Scramble races. The I typically race the VCHSS series, and for the last 3 years, I've raced a full season. I have some family stuff going on this season, so I was not able to do a full season. So I've only done kind of some select races that were close to me, and I also did the snowshoe GNCC, which is what's playing in the background right now. It was just kind of a bucket list race for me that I had never done before and figured I would give it a shot. So I was the only guy on the Stark at the race. My biggest beef with racing this thing is not with the bike. Racing the bike is incredible. It's so much fun. My beef is with the whole class system and the AMA not allowing the electric bikes to run with the gas bikes in the vet classes. I'm a C class 40 plus vet racer. I really don't think I'm much faster on this thing than I am on my two-stroke 300. I just have a lot more fun riding it, and it's a lot easier to maintain between races. I think it's kind of ridiculous that they don't allow the electric bikes in a woods race to run with the gas bikes. I can see in other disciplines, motocross, supercross, stuff like that, where it would be kind of a advantage to not have to shift and stuff like that. But in a 2 hour woods race, to me, there's just not the advantage isn't really there. I've got, like I said, I've done 30 to 40 Hare Scrambles in my racing career, and I didn't feel like I was that much faster on the 4 or 5 that I've done on this bike versus the ones that I've done on my other bikes. It's to me, it's not that different. And with the battery limitations being what they are, you can't run this thing at crazy horsepowers for long periods of time. So it's not that much of an advantage, I don't think. You've got to manage your battery life, or you're not going to finish. I mean, what's that? What's the old saying? To finish first, one must first finish. So if you can't finish the race because you ran 70 horsepower for the whole time, then you're not going to win. And not only that, but you can't run this thing at 50, 60 horsepower on tight single track. I can't anyway. I mean, like I said, I'm a C class 40 plus vet racer that I finished third in my class last season, or yeah, the 2023 season. So I'm not an A class racer. I'm not a B class racer. I'm a pretty solid C class racer. Um, so that's my ability level. I've entered in the open electric class races that I've entered. I've actually ended up quote unquote winning, because I don't know if it even counts as winning because it's not a points class, but I'll beat a lot of the faster guys because they can't make it through a race on a battery. So that, to me, my strategy is I preset my power modes at like typically 25, 35, 45, and 55 horsepower. I start the race, or somewhere around in that range, like at 10 horsepower increments. I will start the race in 50 horsepower, and I will just for the start. And as soon as we get off the line and we get going into the woods, really, I'll dial it back as far as I can possibly dial it back. I try to run most of the first lap in 25 horsepower. If it's a big hill climb or something, I'll bump it up as necessary. If I need to make a pass, I'll bump it up as necessary. And as soon as I get the pass, I bump it right back down and try to keep the power down as low as I can and ride as smooth as I can without a lot of speeding up and slowing down in order to manage the battery. To me, that's kind of one of the biggest differences in riding this kind of bike than riding a gas bike. You cannot be, you got to be efficient with your battery life. So I think it's taught me to ride a little bit smoother. It's kind of more like a mountain bike. You got to think about momentum and keeping your speed up and trying to carry speed through corners and ride smooth and not speed up, slow down, that type thing. So that's a big strategy for me is battery management and trying and just making it through the race. And I'll, if I expect to get 4 laps in the race, I will make sure that, if I come through scoring on the first lap with, I need to have at least 75% of my battery left, or I'm doing something wrong. So if I come through scoring and I've got 85% battery, then okay, cool, I can bump it up to 30, 35 horsepower and go from there. So once I do my first lap, I sort of see where I'm at with my battery and then readjust from there. And that strategy's worked for me. I have never not finished a race. This race that's playing in the background right now is the Snowshoe GNCC for 2024, and I raced 2 hours and 55 minutes on this bike, and I made it back to the truck with 4% battery left. I was a little nervous that I wasn't going to finish, but I did it. And so, like I said, you got to be diligent about watching your battery. If you don't pay attention to what you got on your battery, you're going to be in trouble. So that's another big takeaway on this thing. As far as everything else on the bike goes, the phone thing, some people have software issues and stuff with the phone, and I really haven't had anything. I think it's I think there's a lot more that they could do with the app and the phone and that type of stuff. I haven't figured out how to pull GPS tracks off of it or anything like that. Supposedly you can download the GPS tracks, and I don't know what I'd do with them, but if I wanted to, I could. It gives me the option to save it, but I don't know where it saves. I'm also not an Android phone guy, so maybe I'm looking in the wrong spot or whatever. But as far as the app goes, it's fine for me. It's relatively easy to read and figure out and stuff like that. So don't have a lot of complaints there. I do think it's cool that it is just a regular phone, and you can I put Spotify on mine, and you can put a Bluetooth speaker in your pocket and ride around and listen to music. And if you're not going super fast, you can actually hear it, which is kind of cool. Like I said, it's worked fine for me. The updates work okay. I live in an area that doesn't have great cell service, so that is a little bit of a pain of having to manage doing updates and stuff like that. I think it's cool that it has the reverse. I don't love the fact that it locks the rear wheel up in the crawl modes. I think that's kind of a kind of a strange way to set it up. You would think crawl mode would be helpful for loading it into the truck and stuff, but if you're trying to get it on a ramp and you miss the ramp per se with the front tire, for me, I don't like that I can't back the bike up and readjust my angle. It's just weird. I've never had a bike that acts like that, obviously. So that's the only thing for me that I think is a little bit strange. I can understand why you would want it maybe in the crawl mode going forward, but for the reverse, I think it's weird. But it is nice to have in reverse to be able to just back up a little bit. I'm not the tallest guy. I'm like 5'9", so being able to not having to push a 240, 50-pound bike backwards on your tippy toes is nice, just to be able to back up a little bit. But otherwise, I don't have really anything bad to say about the bike. I've had an awesome time with mine. Like I said, I've done 4 or 5 races. I've finished every single one. I've won most of them, but except for one. Uh, like I said, it's winning is a kind of a relative term. You're talking about a open class that has no points, and you don't, it's not a points class. I think that's ridiculous. I think that either the AMA or the local series should make it a points class. I don't know why you wouldn't. If you want to run a non-points class, you can run a trail rider or a sportsman class and not get any points. I don't know why they would make a non-points class for these bikes. Maybe that's good for me as a C-class rider, because if they made it a points class and a bunch of A-level guys showed up, well, I'm not going to do very well, but I don't really care. I just want to have a good time and race, and I'm not doing this for money. I'm not doing it professionally. And if I'm doing it to make money, I'm certainly in the wrong hobby, because that's not what I'm doing. So I guess my bottom line for the Stark is that this thing's awesome. If you want to get into dirt bikes and you've never ridden one before, this thing, it's got to be the easiest bike to get on and go. It's not going to teach you, it's not going to prepare you to ride any other bike, because you won't learn how to shift gears and use clutch and stuff like that. But if you don't care about that and you just want to go out on the weekends and ride around with your buddies and have a good time, to me, this is the way to do it. As far as battery life goes, it's highly dependent on how you ride the thing. Obviously, the more horsepower you use, the quicker you're going to eat up your battery. I am a woods racer and rider. I don't ride. I've ridden more motocross lately than I probably ever have in my life, and I will say that this thing is a blast on a motocross track at 50 horsepower. I mean, it's awesome, but the battery, is not going to last you all day at a motocross track. So if you're going to ride moto, you need to get a generator. I have a 3,500 watt Furman generator that I got at Costco. It does not charge at 240 volts. But honestly, the only time I use the generator is when I show up to a race. I'll charge the bike the night before the race or the day before, and I will put it in the van fully charged. And like any other battery powered thing, the battery is going to drain a little bit overnight. So I will get to the race, and while I'm suiting up, I will pull the generator out and put the bike on the charger for a few minutes right before I go to the start, just to make sure that I'm showing up with as much battery as I possibly can. So if I'm just riding around, not at race pace, just having a good time in the woods, this thing will last me all day. I've never killed the battery in the woods on just a fun ride day. Like I said, I got at a C-class vet, quote-unquote, race pace with paying strong attention to my battery management. I was able to get 2 hours and 55 minutes nonstop at the Snowshoe GNCC. So you can get a lot of battery out of this thing in the woods. Like I said, on a motocross track, you're going to need to bring a generator if you want to ride all day, and you're going to need to stop and charge when you stop to eat lunch, or when you're taking a break or whatever. You're going to need to throw it on the charger if you want it to last all day. That's been my experience with it. But yeah, like I said, this thing is great. I have no complaints. I would buy it again if I would love to buy another one and honestly set it up as a dual sport, just to be able to ride the thing around town, to be able to ride it really anywhere with not a lot of noise and not piss off your neighbors. And I mean, you can take this thing almost anywhere. If you've got, I ride it ride it around in my backyard. I don't worry about, I got little kids and I'm not worried about waking them up at nap time and stuff like that. It's awesome for that. I still have my Beta 300. I'm not planning on getting rid of it. The only downfall to having these electric bikes is that you're not supposed to keep them fully charged all the time. So I keep it in the garage I try to keep it at 50%. And if somebody calls me and says, hey, you want to go ride, and I have time and I don't have the bike charged, that's the that's the main drawback on these bikes, is that you have got to be ready to go. You got to plan ahead a little bit. So in the last, since December of 23, and it is currently November of 24, I have ridden my beta twice. Once I rode it, I took it out to a buddy's house just to ride it around to make sure the thing still ran, because I really hadn't ridden it in 6 months. And I rode it more recently. I went to a motocross track and I wasn't sure how the battery was going to do on the Stark, so I brought the beta, and I I needed the beta. I could not make it through a full day of riding just the Stark, so I was glad I brought it then. So it is that I still have a place for the beta. I still enjoy riding the two stroke 300. It's I do miss the sound. I mean, I love that beta 300 sound when you wind that thing up. It's awesome. Any two stroke is just, any gas bike. It's awesome to be, hard coming out of a corner in the power band and just ripping on that thing. It's the sound, the smell. I love all of it. But I also love the ease of riding this thing, the ease of maintenance. I love how smooth it is. There's no vibration. It's so fun to ride. Everybody that I have talked to that is unsure or doesn't like electric or this or that or whatever, I'm like, go ride it, man. Go ride it for 5 minutes and tell me how you like it. And I haven't had anybody come back without a smile on their face and being like, wow, this thing is awesome. So, again, it's not for everybody, but for me, like I said, middle-aged, C-class, hobbyist dirt biker that just wants to go ride and doesn't want to spend as much time working on the thing, it's been awesome. I have no complaints. Would buy one again. Probably will buy one again. I look forward to the other big manufacturers coming out with them, mainly because I think that'll change the mind of the AMA and have them. I think once Honda releases an electric bike, it's going to hopefully open up the electric bikes for a more widespread, I guess, racing audience, if that makes sense. I think the big manufacturers obviously is going to innovate and push the limits of what can be done. So I'm looking forward to more years of these things. I'm looking forward to Stark releasing I know they've made some changes to the quote unquote second generation of these bikes, which I think is just, all they did was change like the charger, where the charger plugs in, and I think the water pump has some minor changes, but it's really no different than the quote unquote Gen 1. But once some of the battery technology changes, I know, I think Molicel has released a upgraded cell that goes inside these batteries, so it's supposed to be, I guess, lighter and hold more charge and that type thing. So I mean, I think in the next 10 to 15 years, these things are going to be incredible. This one is awesome, and I think once they start improving on it, it's going to get even better. Yet to see what resale is going to be on them. I think I'm seeing them listed on Facebook groups and stuff at like $8,000. I think they do have a 2-year warranty, so I've had mine for a year and it's still under warranty. I have not had any warranty claim stuff. I did break the stupid Stark foot pegs that they bragged about in their intro video. Literally on like the second ride ever, I dropped the thing on a rock and the foot peg just shattered. Supposedly they'll give you free foot pegs, but I didn't find that out till I already bought a set of bulletproof KTM foot pegs, which the KTM foot pegs will fit on it with like very minor modifications, so I just did that. But otherwise, I haven't really had any issues. I've really enjoyed having the thing, and I love riding it. So hopefully that helps somebody out that has been looking at one, or whatever, if you're interested in them. They're super fun. Like I said, no regrets. Would buy one again. Will buy one again. Leave a comment or whatever if you got any questions or anything else that I didn't answer, but hopefully this helps some people out. So thank y'all for listening, and see you later.